Hi, I'm Ashley, and today I'm going to show you how to paint these two watercolor Christmas cards. So I will say, first off, these are not supposed to be quick Christmas cards. These are going to take a little while, so this would be something that I would recommend, doing a little bit in advance, which is why these are coming out kind of early. But they're super cute and super funny, so I really enjoy them, and they're really fun to paint. You can always also make copies and reproductions of them if you want to send them out in mass. You could just paint one and then have them printed on a card also, so that's an option. Or you can always purchase them if you don't feel like painting them. I do have them available in card bundles on my website, shop.craftywithashley.com. So if you don't feel like having a go and painting it yourself, you can always purchase it if you think they're funny and cute and would like to use them. But I do hope that you have a go at them yourself because they're really fun to paint and they're just so funny to me. My kids are obsessed with dinosaurs, so I just think they're hilarious. So before we get going, whenever I'm actually painting, these are real-time tutorials and I don't edit it a lot. So I don't really add in requests to like and comment. That really does help the channel. So if you are enjoying this video at any point, or if you have questions or just comments about things that you enjoyed seeing, breakthroughs that you're having, please leave that down in the comments. Please like the video and also subscribe to my channel to check out tons more content. And that's my little plug. Now we can actually dive into the painting. So for the first one, we're gonna dive right in with our green here to get a Christmas tree. And I'm gonna start kind of a little off center and then build in around it. So here's the top of my tree, and it's just gonna be a very loose, like messy triangle, and just painting some strokes starting thinner at the top and then getting thicker toward the bottom. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just vary the direction of the strokes. We're going for a loose illustration here, nothing really detailed, okay? So there's the green. Now I'm gonna drop in some darker colors here. So getting a variety of greens, some more olive and some more, this is Hooker's green, so it's a cooler green. And we can even drop some blues in there just to get some variety. Okay. Make it darker toward the middle and the bottom. Okay. And then I'm going to get some brown, so I'm just going to use a little bit of burnt umber mixed with some ultramarine to darken it. Keep it still a little bit warm. And then I'm going to put in a little tree trunk here, so not too wide. Just going up the center here. And then letting it kind of fade out at the bottom. I just want it to be, again, loose. It's not gonna have a stand or anything, and then just kind of blend out a little bit of that at the bottom to get some shadow. Okay, and then we can throw on some Christmas decorations. So I'm gonna use some reds. This is Pearly Maroon, so it's a really warm dark red, and I'm just gonna put on some little Christmas balls, and they're gonna bleed into the tree because I'm not waiting for it to dry. Okay. And so I'm filling in some of that white space with some of these red roundish shapes. They're not gonna stay round because, again, it's gonna bleed into that tree. Okay. And then let's throw in maybe some blue ones also. So I'm gonna do some cerulean blue because it's a little bit more opaque, and just kind of dot that in as well. Okay. And I'm not even doing like full circles. I'm kind of dotting it around, and that makes it look like there's almost a little bit of a highlight on there. Add in just a little bit more darkness. Okay. Now I want to do a star on the top, so I'm going to take some yellow ochre because that's a nice like gold yellow color, and then literally just draw a star. So however you draw a star, I'm going to fill it in, and then do a little triangle shape at the bottom where it connects to the tree. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And it's supposed to be messy. It's not supposed to be precise or anything. Okay. Now we're gonna paint our dinosaurs. So we're gonna try to do it just without drawing them first. So I'm gonna start with the first one. It's gonna be like a long neck one. I think they're called Brontosaurus. I'm not good with dinosaur names. I really should be better at that because my daughter loves dinosaurs, but I'm not good at it. Okay, so its face is gonna be right here and it's gonna be kind of eating the tree, right? That's the point of this one. It's the Christmas, the holiday herbivores. So it's eating the green of the tree here. And so it's gonna have a Christmas hat on. So I don't want to do it too dark on the top there, but there's its head, okay? And then its neck is gonna come down this way. Okay. You get a nice long neck, and I'm just using a mix of whatever greens were in my palette here. So it's Hooker's green, olive green, and some of my blues and stuff, but it's just a mix of greens. It's nothing precise. It can be whatever green you like. And then here's where its chest comes out. So this is all a neck, this is chest. And then I'm gonna go straight into a leg here. And they're just gonna be blunt, rectangular shapes for the legs, okay? And then here's its back. And it's gonna kind of be tucked behind the tree, so it's gonna blend into the tree back here. Okay. And then we'll get the other legs in. So it'll have another leg peeking out here. That's the other front leg. And then the back legs, maybe we'll just see a little bit tucked behind here. And the other back leg might be hiding more behind this one, so I'm not gonna worry about it. And then maybe its tail is kind of really long and curling around the tree a little bit. So I'm gonna bring it this way and curl it around the tree. And maybe that'll make sense, maybe it won't, but that's okay. So I made it too wide, so I'm just gonna kind of take some clean water and literally like erase part of that stroke there. So just adding clean water and then dabbing it up with my towel, and that literally like erases the watercolor. Okay. Now we can add just a little bit of darker green for some shading. So I gotta get less water. So dab it off before going in. And I'm gonna shade under the chest, coming down onto this leg, and then kind of coming into this leg also will be shaded. And then we want to get some like muscular definition, so bringing that up toward the neck. And then same on the back, we can just shade a couple areas and that'll get a little bit of that definition. Shade a little bit under the neck. Now this is dry already, so I'm going to clean my brush and blend it out. Getting sloppy here, that's okay. Sloppy, messy, not a big deal. We'll clean it up. Okay, here we go. A little bit more of that darkness. Okay, blend that down. Soften the line, just adding some clean water. And let's give a little bit of a shadow under him as well. So let's make it a little bit more brown. Maybe the floor is brown, so he's going to be casting that shadow. So grounding him. Add some clean water and let it soften it. Okay, so we'll come back to him and add a face and a hat later. Now on this side, I'm going to do a triceratops. So my triceratops is going to be a bluish, grayish purple color. So I'm literally just mixing all of these purples that are in here. So there's some greenish colors in here and then some purples and pinks, and that makes it kind of a grayish purple. And then the triceratops, I think is going to be a little bit harder to do, but we'll do our best here. So I'm going to start with kind of the little fan shape around here. So I'm just doing a wiggly oval almost. Okay, and then it's going to end there. There you go. And then we have the face coming out here. And kind of put a little beak shape there. Okay. And then its jaw, like that. Something like that. Okay, let's fill that in. So just blend out the edges there. Add some clean water. And just fill that in. Okay. Then we're going to add some shadow to where it's going to be behind the head, right? So I put the head here, it's blended out now, but the head's going to be right here. So there's going to be shadow behind that. And then maybe some shadow down here as well. And then just a little bit of shadow on the little fan part itself. Okay, now for its body, it's going to come out. So it's kind of got the neck here that's hiding behind the fan, and then it'll come out and bulge up a little bit for its back, and then angle down to the tail, and the tail is going to come out basically straight toward the side, but it's going to have some curves up and down. Okay, and then we'll fill in that shape. Here we go, there's the tail. And then the legs come out from where the tail ends. And again, I'm just gonna do kind of a rectangular blocky leg here. The front's gonna have the little curve for the thigh. Okay. I'm filling it in kind of as I go so that I don't get too sharp, harsh of edges, but I'm gonna have some because I'm like that line was dry, but that's okay. Okay, and then its belly's right here, and then it goes into the front leg, which is going to be another little rectangle angled forward. Okay, fill in the rest of that. And then its other front leg will kind of be coming off here. Okay, like he's kind of walking toward the tree. And then we'll tuck another back leg in here as well. So just rectangles, nothing fancy, nothing crazy. I want the back ones to be slightly higher up on the page than the front ones though, so that they look like they're behind. Okay, and then getting all these cauliflowers in on the head and the fan. I think I'm okay with that though, because it just adds extra texture and makes it looser, so that'll be fine. We add in a little bit more definition to the edge of this fan here. So kind of outlining it and then pulling some down to get some of those curves. Okay. And then we'll add a little bit of a shadow on the chest, a little bit of a shadow on the back legs to give them some separation from the body. Okay, little shadow on the front of each of those legs, and then a more defined line to create that thigh and the belly. Okay, lift up a little bit where it goes farther than I want, because I'm going to keep this leg highlighted. Highlight there. Okay, a little bit of shadow on the bottom of the tail. Again, this is dried already because it didn't have very much paint or water there, so I gotta blend out the edge a little bit. Okay, and then the back is dry, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of dry brushing. So flat brush, very small amount of paint. That was too much paint, but that's okay. Rub some off and then just drag it around to get some texture. There we go. Okay, a little bit less water here in my paintbrush. Similar color, and we're gonna get the head defined here. Okay, and then I gotta pick a horn color, so let's just make it a purpley gray that's darker though. So I think I'm gonna add some green to my purple. It's too much green. There we go. And that's like a nice dark gray color that has both of these colors that I mixed in it. And then we're gonna put our horns. So just tap in a curved shape that's pointy at the top and then gets wider at the base. And then another one for the other side. Okay, and then one down toward the nose. Okay. I'm going to use that same color to create an eye. So for the eye, I'm just going to go kind of below the horn and do a little half circle. Okay. And then put a curve on the top, a little one. And then a little curve on the bottom. Fill it in just a little bit more. Okay, and then add a little bit of darkness at the mouth. Okay, take some of this color, lighten it up, and add it for shadows. Shade those back legs a little bit more. Tiny bit more on the tail. And these are more defined shadows. Get where the end of this fan is on the head. Okay, now I was going to put a scarf on my Triceratops, so I'm going to get my reds. And I want it to be pretty vibrant, so I'm getting a lot of paint here. I'm mixing alizarin crimson with perlene maroon so that it's not too pink, because the alizarin crimson can be kind of pink. And then I'm just going to tuck that scarf in around the neck here. And then here's where it's tied. And then for the back one, I'm gonna get it even darker. And then I'm leaving the ends kind of jagged. And then I'm going to get a little bit of my purple and kind of get it in here to look like more of a shadow, and where it's tied, darken that. Okay. A little bit more red in there. Okay, and then the Brontosaurus is going to have a red Santa hat. Okay, so I'll probably do red and maybe green for the fuzzy part, since I didn't leave any white space. So I'm starting with the pointy part and coming up, and then kind of flattening it out. And then coming down onto the head. Make that a little bit wider. And then I'll add some shading. So I'll get my darker red color. So this is more pure perlene maroon. And go on the triangle part that is underneath where it's folded. Okay. Kind of just dab that around. Rinse off my brush. Now I'm going to get a nice green color, so we're just going to use Hooker's Green, and I'm going to fluff that in, so kind of dab in around the bottom there, and then we're going to dab in to make the little ball on the end also. I don't want it to be too rectangular, so gotta make sure I'm dabbing to make it round. Okay, now I need to add a mouth to this guy, so I'm going to take some of my purple and green mixture and hit that in for that dark mouth. And I'm just going to do a line to start with, and then kind of do a second line to widen it, make it look a little bit open. And then I think I'm going to put a little nostril dot there, so it's almost like a little tiny half circle. And then the eyes, I'm going to tuck in kind of under the hat here. So there's the little curve on the bottom, and then a little dot there. Okay, it's pretty silly and I like it. I'm going to add just a little bit more darkness to the horns here to make them pop a little more. And to the eye, I think. Just a tad more darkness. Okay, and then we're gonna splatter some. So I'm gonna take my purple light wash and splatter it over on the Triceratops side. Take some cleanish water and spread it around on the top, and then get a little bit more of the purple. And let that bleed out. And I'm just gonna dab some up off of the Triceratops so it doesn't bleed too much. And then same thing for the green on the other side here. So take some green, and I can make some of them mix, but I don't want it to mix too much. And then dab up off of the dinosaur. And we'll take just a little bit of the blue as well to tie that in. Okay, I need to put a little bit of a shadow under the Triceratops here, so I'm getting it wet first this time. You can do it either way. You can get it wet first, or you can drop in the color first and then blend it out. It doesn't really matter. Okay, now I'm gonna let it dry, and then I'm going to do my lettering where it's gonna say holiday herbivores. I'm just fiddling now, adding a little bit more color to the scarf. This is really unnecessary, but I'm doing it anyway. Okay, so now for real, I'm just gonna let it dry and then I'll come back. So now that this is dry, I can go ahead and do the lettering here. Now, lettering is not my strong suit, so we're gonna see how it goes. But I'm gonna start by drawing very faint straight lines using a ruler so that I can get my words straight, because that's not always the easiest. Okay, and then I can erase those lines after. And then I'm going to write out the words here, again in pencil, very loosely so that I make sure that they fit on the page. I'll try to follow the lettering lines as I paint them, but I also will kind of make adjustments to make it hopefully look better, but we'll see. So I'm gonna do cursive here. Okay. H-O. L. I. I'm trying to create some space between the lines for these just to make it look a little bit looser and a little bit more like calligraphy, I guess. Nope, that's not a good D start. Day. And D-A. Nice oval. And then out. And then Y. Kind of curve that up and around. Let it taper out. Okay, there's holiday. And then herbivores. So I'm gonna offset the start just a little bit here and try to make my H look the same, hopefully. Okay. And then the E. I always want to do it straight up and down, and then it looks weird. So try to make it more angled here. E. R. A little tall. Go. B. Herb. I. So I. And then V. O. R. S. I never know how to end the S. Do I curve it around or do I make it? I don't know. I think that looks fine though. Okay. I'm gonna make this B taller because it doesn't match the H. So let's go up higher for the B. Here we go. Get a little bit thinner. There we go. Fitting in the eyes right here. Okay, I think that'll work. So now I just have to decide on what brush I'm gonna use and then what color I'm gonna use. So I think I'm gonna go with the colors. I think I'm gonna do red and gold. And I want a thinner brush here. So I'm gonna get, I don't think I wanna use a rigger. Let me grab, where's my size 2? Is this a size 2? That's a size 8. Where's my size 2? No. I think I want to grab my size 2 because it's got a better point than the size 0. Okay, I'm going to use a size 2 round and try that. So I'm going to do red first and then gold. So I want to make sure that I have enough paint here so that it's dark, but I also want enough water so that it flows easily. I don't want to have to fight to get the color down. And then I'm just rolling that in to get enough paint and then just touching it so that I get any drop of water off of it. Okay, and then I'm gonna hold fairly vertical here. Really light touch. And on the downstrokes, try to do a heavier touch. A little bit of pressure to get that calligraphy look to it. I am not good at calligraphy, so this is gonna turn out how it turns out, and hopefully it turns out good, but we'll see. Okay. add just a little bit more color to it. Make it a little bit darker. Okay, I think that is the most successful calligraphy style writing I've done before. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm gonna take my yellow ochre, same thing, nice and loose, dab my paintbrush to get off any little drops of water, and then just go for it. I should have lightened up the writing before I started. Especially for this yellow, because it's not going to be as opaque as the red. Okay, I'm going to take some more concentrated color here and go over it.
Yep.
And I am going over the whole thing to make it darker here. Okay, now I'm gonna dry that and then erase the pencil. I'm going to start with the kneaded eraser and get out as much as I can. And then if I need to go to a harder eraser to get the rest, I can. Oh, I forgot the dots on the eyes. Okay. There we go.
Here.
Okay, and then I think I'm going to try to do a harder eraser to see if I can erase the lines under the watercolor. Okay, I can't, but that's okay. It looks fine. But definitely rub out that pencil if you want to have that not showing underneath. It's not too obvious, and I can always go over it again with a little bit more paint to cover it a little bit better. All right, and there is our Holiday Herbivores Christmas card. So I showed my husband the painting and he told me I spelled herbivores wrong. So I just took a bunch of water and erased my S. So I just like I did here, I just added water and then dabbed it out with the towel and then added the ES instead. So now for real, here's my completed painting with herbivores spelled correctly. We're gonna start with our sketch here for Christmas carnivore. So I'm gonna start by sketching out my general kind of shapes. So I'm gonna start with my table here, and it's gonna be like a vignette style, so it's gonna taper off at the edges. If you hear booming, it is thundering here right now, so that's nice. I love thunderstorms, so I'm good with that. So this is gonna be the table. And we're gonna put a table with meats on it, just traditional Christmas meats. So we're gonna have like a big turkey and then some other meat that's got like bones in it. I can't remember what that meat's called right now, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And then we're gonna have the table legs coming down like this. So I just started with parallel straight lines for the edge of the table. And here's one table leg. And then the table is going to go back at an angle. And then our back table leg will be coming off of where that back angle is. So let's kind of extrapolate that a little bit farther and then come down. And that's where our back table leg is. Okay. And so we want it to end higher up on the page so that it's showing that perspective. So this one's going to be a little bit narrower and higher up on the page. Okay, and then we're looking at it from like this angle, so we're going to see a little bit of the inside of that leg as well, and the inside of this leg. Okay, so there's our general table, and then now we're going to put our meat on the table. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of a curve here for the platter. Okay. And then we're going to have a nice big turkey. So we have the hump for the back, then it kind of comes down, and then another little hump here. And this is an illustration, so it doesn't have to be like perfectly precise or anything. And then here's a leg. Nice big meaty leg here. And then it comes back to the drumstick. Okay. And then since we're seeing kind of the top view, maybe we'll see just a little bit of this other drumstick sticking out as well. And then we're going to have a wing right here, which comes back and kind of gets pinned or toothpicked under the leg a little bit when you're cooking it. So that's going to go there. And then it kind of curves under like so. Okay, kind of reinforce that platter now. And then as long as we give it that nice like golden hue, I think it's going to get the point across that it's a turkey. Okay, so our other platter is going to be here.
Come straight there.
And it's going to kind of fade out on the edge there.
No, great.
And these are going to be, what is this type of meat called? I don't know. Anyway, whatever. It's going to be, are these lamb chops? I don't know. Anyway, whatever this is. Maybe it's a kind of dinosaur meat. I don't know. Since we're doing carnivores, dinosaurs. Okay.
Right, right.
Okay, so there is the general view of the meat, and then we're gonna have
Yes.
the back edge of the table here.
Right.
So I need to actually move this table leg in some to fit this perspective. So if I intersect these two lines, which is obviously behind the turkey, it's about right here. So that's where the table leg needs to be. So it just needs to be over a little bit. Okay. Okay, so there's our general table with our meat on it. Okay, well, I'm having some camera issues, so hopefully we got that drawing. If not, it's gonna be the side view from this camera, which is working, which is not as ideal for the sketch, but sorry about that if that's what's going on. So now we're gonna sketch out the dinosaur. So I'm gonna start with the head, and we're gonna just do like a little snout here. Okay, so it kind of curves around, just a C shape, and then it's gonna go up to the head. And then we have the jaw here. So a very subtle curve for the jaw. And that's gonna come into the bottom part of the mouth. Okay. And then we'll do some negative painting to get some teeth and everything in. Once we get to the painting part, we're gonna have little raised nostrils there. And we're gonna have an eye here, so we'll curve on the bottom. There we go. And then the neck is gonna come down from kind of the middle of the jaw and come down to the chest and the belly. And then the back of the neck is also going to come down. And then curve up just a little bit for the back. and then come down to a tail. So I'm gonna have the tail come around this way. So just a curve. And then the bottom of the tail is gonna be wide and then get a bit narrower toward the bottom and come to a point. Kind of a rounded point, but a point. And then we're gonna put the legs in. So the haunches here are a nice big curve and have big powerful legs here. I don't know what kind of dinosaur this is. It's gonna have the little spine here, so I think it's like a Spinosaurus or something like that. But I'm kind of mixing T-Rex with this. I just like the little fan on the back of this one, so that's why we're adding it. I don't really know what the arms and stuff look like on this one, but this is what we're going with. And then we're just gonna add in some subtle lines on the fan for the spines here, angling them slightly toward the center. And then those will have little bumps on the end. Okay. Now back to the legs. So we have our nice powerful thighs, and then I'm gonna come down into like a knee here. Okay, there's the calf. And it kind of comes out to a point there, and then comes in and down to the foot. I'm just gonna have kind of 3 toes coming off of it. And then the other leg will kind of be turning this direction just like our table is. So the other leg's gonna be kind of in front here, but then it's stepping, so it's gonna come back like this. And this foot will kind of be up on the toes. So there's calf into foot. And it's coming off the toes though. Okay. Something like that. Now we're gonna do the front arms, which are gonna be short, kind of like T-Rex arms. So we're gonna have the shoulder here. Okay. And then it's gonna come up for the forearm. And then these little hands are going to be here. And then kind of same for the back one. We're just seeing a little bit of it. Okay, so there is our dinosaur shape. I'm going to erase those extra lines. Give it a little bit more curve to the belly. Okay. And then I'm gonna put a Santa hat on our little Christmas carnivore here. Okay, so just a little rounded rectangle for the fluffy part of the hat. And then we're gonna curve it up just a little bit, basically straight across here, come down, and curve it down to the little ball. Okay, and then show that little fold here and come down to that ball. Okay. Get a little bit more fluffiness. All right, so there is our Christmas carnivore drawing. So now we're just gonna go in and paint it. So I'm gonna take my kneaded eraser and lighten up the sketch. So I'm just gonna start by dabbing up the darkest areas to lift off that extra graphite. And then I'm gonna roll the kneaded eraser over the entire thing to lighten it up even more. And then I can rub out a little bit extra if needed. Okay, so it's really light there so that we can paint over it and not have those lines showing through. So I'm gonna start with this 16 round Degado brush. It is large, but it has a nice point. So I'm gonna use that at least to mix up my colors and then probably get in the first wash, and then I'll move to smaller brushes for more detail. So I'm gonna start with mixing the color for my dinosaur. And I want it to be like a reddish color, but like a reddish brown. So kind of neutral. So I'm just mixing my reds that were in the palette here with some browns, which the browns are like burnt umber, burnt sienna. Okay, and then just a little bit of Payne's Gray to cool it down slightly, take it more toward that kind of purpley brown. And then I can always add in more of the reds. Okay, so it's kind of like a purpley brown color. And then I'm gonna start very light there and just do a wash over the dinosaur. Avoiding the hat, especially the white parts of the hat. And then I'm just gonna kind of bump up around this spine to get that jagged edge. Just gonna turn the page so that I can use the point of my brush and push forward a little bit, like back and forth, to get that jaggedness. And at this point, I'm just filling in the shapes that I drew. Trying to avoid hard edges, but it is drying pretty fast because again, this isn't 100% cotton. So just understand that I might have to kind of go back and rework some areas, get it wet again. Okay. Now, a benefit of not being 100% cotton is that it does lift a little bit easier. So like I can lift out some areas on the mouth. This would depend on the staining properties of your paint too, but typically on cellulose paper, lifting's easier, layering's harder, and soft bleeds are harder. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there. Kind of let that dry. I went outside the lines a little bit here, so I'm just lifting up, kind of softening up that area. Okay. Now I can go in with a smaller brush, I think, for the meat here. So I'm gonna take a size 8 round and use yellow ochre to start with on my turkey. Give it that nice golden color. And this is kind of the highlight color. And then we'll add in shadows. Okay, so I'm gonna take more of that color toward the bottom. Leaving that bright highlight kind of on the back of it. Okay, a little more. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to take some burnt sienna, which is a nice orangey brown, so it's a little bit darker than the yellow ochre. A little bit more on the brown side, still very orange though. Touch that into some of the areas, trying to let it bleed a little bit. Blend out this highlight a little bit more so that it's a more subtle transition. Tap in a little bit more color. Okay, now I'm going to take some burnt umber for even more shadow and tap that in. Now the paint that I have on my paintbrush is not very wet, so it's not going to bleed a ton. It's going to bleed a little bit though. And then again, I can lift easily on this, so I can lift out some more highlights if I need to. Adding a little bit more darkness here and there. Okay, I think that reads turkey pretty well. Now these are going to be more of like a reddish meat color. So let me start with a layer of red, and this red is just whatever was in my palette already, if I'm being honest. So it's going to be a mix of my pinks and reds and some neutrals. So maybe some browns, maybe some greens, just a bunch of random stuff. But it just gets this nice, like, kind of muted red. But to make this color, if you mix some pink or some red with just a touch of green, you're going to get a nice muted red. Okay, and then we're going to take some brown to pull out the bones here. And I'll add some more darkness to that, I think. And then we'll add a bit of dark brown. So this is, neighbors are doing yard work. I'm sorry, I don't know why they're doing yard work when there's a thunderstorm. And I'm positive you can hear that. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I'm kind of doing a ring around the meat in this dark color, which is sepia mixed with burnt umber. Okay. And then I'm going to blend that out just a little bit so that it's not such hard to find edges. And then we're going to add some more of the reds in. And then we're going to add some more dark. So this is sepia. Again, it's brown, but it's like a very dark, almost black brown. And we're going to add that into the bones, especially for some shadows, so toward the bottom edge. And then that can kind of come in to the center of the pieces of meat. Okay. Is it a perfect representation of a piece of meat, whatever this kind of meat is? No, probably not, because I don't even know what kind of meat it is, but that's okay. It's, again, it just kind of has to read as meat. That's not the focal point, so. Now we'll come back in and do some more on the dinosaur. So I'm going to take more of that color, adding some more deep red into it. So this red is Perline Maroon. So it's a very, very deep, dark red that's a little bit muted. Okay. And we're going to work on some kind of shadow areas. So under the jaw is going to be shadowed. Around the hat is going to be shadowed. Right under the hat. There we go. I'm going to put a shadow on the back. So rinse my brush, blend it down. Okay. Shadow behind the leg and on the tail. Okay, again, I'm going to blend that out now. So I'm just taking minimally damp brush and scrubbing just a little bit because it's drying very fast. Okay, so just a little scrubbing. Add in just a little bit more color right on that transition. Okay, I'm going to add in a little bit of shading around the mouth, so just toward the open jaw. And then right along the bottom of the bottom jaw.
Right.
Okay. Blend that up into the face a little bit. Guys, I'm so annoyed right now. I do not know why we're doing yard work in a thunderstorm. But it's right outside my back windows. But I've started and I can't really take a break now because I'm working. Like bleeding into the wet, so I can't do much. So I'm so sorry about the noise. Okay, so I'm gonna now take this darker color and shade the back arm here. Trying to keep it kind of angular.
Yeah.
And negative painting around the front arm. Okay, so that's gonna make that front arm pop. I'm gonna do the same thing for the back leg. So I'm gonna carve out where the belly is and then paint under that and then carve out where the knee is on this one and paint around that. And there's the calf coming into that back foot. Give it a nice pointed heel there. Okay, I'm gonna give it a red tongue, so I'm mixing my perline maroon with a little bit of alizarin crimson, which is more of a pink red color. And I'm gonna paint in the tongue, and I'm gonna kind of use this opportunity to paint in some teeth. So the tongue is gonna have some white areas kind of jetting up into it to look like teeth. Okay, so it's not all gonna be red. There we go. And take a little bit more of the dark color, so the perline maroon, maybe a little bit of brown with it toward the back. To get a little bit of a shadow in there. Okay. Use that same color to paint in some shadows for some nostrils. And the eye. So mostly sepia here. Leave a little bit of white space there for a highlight. Add in Payne's gray on top of it to make it darker. Okay. Okay, I'm going to add some shading to this front arm now. So this is a much lighter version of the shadow color versus the like back leg there. And we're going to get some shadow under the arm. And then again, a little bit more behind the leg here. Okay. And then we're going to shade the back of the leg, the bottom of the foot, kind of get some lines in for some muscle definition. Okay. Blend it out just a little bit. Get some dark color here for the claws, the toes. And I'm just kind of painting in 3 of them. And then maybe 1 in the back. Paint 1 in the back there. And these ones you're not really going to see because they're behind the tail, but I want to get them in anyway. Okay, let's add a little bit more darkness to the feet. Okay, just adding a touch more behind the arm, behind the legs. Okay, now I'm going to add some subtle lines here for the spines. And so I'm starting in the middle one and kind of bringing it down toward the back. And then I'm going to go kind of halfway in between and angle it in, halfway in between, angle it in. And then now I'm just going to do a few here and there. I'm not trying to paint every single detail here, just a little bit. Okay. And then just a little bit more darkness in between them so that they don't stand out quite so much. Kind of keeping that same angle though. Okay, go down. And then I'm just going to kind of define the edge just a little bit more in some areas, not the whole thing. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to do the hat. So I'm going to take my Windsor red, which is a nice primary red. It's got a little bit of my Perlene maroon in it though. And I'm going to add that under the bend in the hat and right along where the red or where the white fluffy would be. Okay. Now I'm going to take a little bit more water. So nice, decent drop of water there, put it in there, and then blend that out. Okay. I said Windsor Red. I don't have Windsor Red in this palette right now. This is definitely the Perling version. Adding in thicker paint. Right along the bend, and then right along where this white is, the fluffy ball. And kind of dropping it in the middle here where there's a little bit of a shadow because of the curve down. So there could be a little shadow there. Maybe a little bit of a shadow right along the edge. Okay, now we're gonna let that dry and see how that turns out. I can work on the table now. So my table is gonna be a nice dark brown. So I'm gonna mix burnt umber with, some ultramarine blue. To get a nice dark brown. Maybe some burnt sienna as well to warm it up. There we go. Okay, that's a good brown. So I'm gonna kind of do what I did with the hat and start kind of with my dark, and then I'll blend it out. So I'm gonna do dark right under the platter here. And on this platter. Okay. Take some of the water off, or some of the paint off, add some water, and then go right up to the edge of the table, and carefully painting around the platters. Just kind of refining the shape of the platter as I go. Add some cleanish water, cleanish, right along this side to let it bleed out. Lift it up just a little bit. Now for the legs, I'm gonna do a wash on them, and then I'll go back and darken them up after.
State.
Let's see if I can drop in a little bit more of the dark paint right under the edge of the platters. To get that shadow in. Okay. And then the edge of the table is also going to have a dark shadow. That front edge. Try to create a nice straight clean line. Which is, you know, not always going to be perfectly straight, but that's okay. Okay. I think that reads this edge of the table. Now for the table legs. We'll do the same thing, so a nice dark side here of the table leg. Add even more blue to it to darken it up even more. Okay. Come back in and lift out this edge of the table. Because again, I want that to kind of bleed out. I think I like the Santa hat. I'm just going to add a little bit of a very faint wash of blue to the white areas of the hat. So this is just really watered down Payne's Gray. To add a shadow. Just kind of define the edges there. Make it look a little bit fluffy. So add some shadow in. On it. Okay. Just gonna add a touch of ultramarine to the dinosaur to take it a little bit more purple for the shadow areas. Cool it down just a tad.
missing.
Okay.
Okay, while I'm waiting for this to dry completely, I'm gonna take some of my red and get it nice and wet and just do some splatters. Okay, same with my yellow ochre to get some of that gold color in. And then maybe just a touch of the brown as well. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow under everything. So kind of just under the table and the dinosaur. And okay. Now I'm going to add more darkness to the other side of the table leg. And I didn't put any front claws on this guy, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of some claws. Darken up the back ones a little bit. Okay, so here's our Christmas carnivore. And then I'm gonna do lettering. And I'm gonna keep the colors consistent here with the yellow ochre and then the pearly maroon. I do wanna let it dry and then write out the words first because I am not the best with my lettering. So I wanna write it out first and then do it. So let me dry it real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna write Christmas carnivore right here. And I'm gonna try to do a nice like script font. So let me get a ruler first and get some lines so we're nice and straight. Because I like to make my words go angled on the page, which I don't want to do. So we're going to try to keep them nice and straight, and then I'll erase those lines after. Okay. So just keeping it nice and light. We're going to start with Christmas and try to make sure I'm spelling it right. Okay, Christmas and then carnivore. So, what? See. We are in by the are the okay, so there's my lettering, and I'm gonna lighten that up before I paint it, so I'm just gonna rub it out gently, just so I can barely see it. Okay, now I'm gonna take that number 2 brush again. And I think I'm gonna start with the yellow ochre. So I'm gonna get a decent amount of paint here. I'm gonna turn my palette around. So I got a decent little puddle here. It's pretty creamy, so there's water in it, but it's still fairly thick and pigmented. And I just coat my brush in that. Make sure that there's not a little drop of water on the end, because then that will make it harder to control where I'm putting the paint and how much. Okay. See, I'm already spelling it wrong. Okay. Don't think about it so much. You know how to spell Christmas. It's not hard. Okay. I'll erase that little mistake. I was going straight to the R instead of the H. C-H-R, even though it's here. Okay, so same thing. Just make sure that I don't have that extra blob of water on the end. C-H-R. I S T M A S. Cross the T, dot the I. Okay, and then I'll go in and darken it up in a minute after it dries. Now I'm going to take my pearly maroon. Make sure that there's enough water in it. Pearly maroon's a pretty bold color, so it can have quite a bit of water. This isn't as creamy as the yellow ochre was. Just making sure I have that extra dot of water off. And let's do carnivore. Okay, so now I can take my darker paint, so thicker version now that I have that in, and I'm gonna add that in and and make it more like calligraphy, so thicker on the downstrokes and then nice and thin on the upstrokes.
Stops it.
Okay. Now I'm going to come back in and get some darker yellow ochre and do the same thing. So trying to thicken those downstrokes a little bit. Nice and thin on the upstrokes. And just kind of darkening the whole thing.
Each.
Okay. There we go. Christmas carnivore. So again, here are those completed paintings. So here is holiday herbivores, however you pronounce it. And here is Christmas carnivores. So again, I think they turned out super cute and adorable, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. Have an awesome day and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all of those things.